I have some very strange news today. Brian Stelter has shocked the world. He has done the impossible. I know it's hard to believe, but I saw it with my own eyes. His new book briefly did make it to number one on Amazon.com. His mother must have bought 10,000 stocking stuffers for Christmas because there's no other possible explanation for how this could happen. Even Matt Drudge took notice, posting a link directly to the book and noting that Stelter hits number one on Amazon. He couldn't have done it without the help of MSNBC. However, Richard Maddow dedicated almost an entire show to the book and pushed it harder than a QVC host trying to sell new silverware to grandma. She read endless excerpts about the book, which consists mostly of gossip about Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. Then she brought little Brian himself on for the final plug. But things didn't go so well for him when he appeared on C-SPAN's Washington Journal, a show which is known to take calls from the audience. This caller from Minnesota did an excellent job taking little Brian to the woodshed, and since it was live and not CNN, Brian had no control and just had to sit there and take it for 2 minutes.
Good morning, C-SPAN. Good morning, America. So I just wanted to say thank you, C-SPAN, for having the CNN anchor on, because over the last 3.5 plus months, we've gotten to see, the exposure of how the Fourth Estate has completely been burned down. Brian, do you believe in polls?
I do believe in polls, yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, the last poll that I saw from a reliable source was that in 1970, let's talk about Walter Cronkite for a second, the United States believed that the media was giving them real factual information. A new poll just came out that said it's completely the opposite. So 80% believed in the media in 1970, and now 20% does. So 80% doesn't. So when I look at that, I look at this as very unreliable sources. And you guys always talk about how many times Trump has lied. I've calculated that I think with your chyrons, I don't know if there's any journalists left at CNN, but I know that if I were to estimate about 300 different, distortions or misinformation that we get out of CNN, and you have to watch them in the airport, which is harsh, but if you added all that up to 46 months, it comes out to be 300,000 plus distortions of truth. So my thing is that you guys, this is how low you'll go, is that you went out and you made lies and you defamed a child, and then you had to settle out of court to pay this child for distorting information about this young individual. So I would say, if anything that's happening at CNN and anybody who buys your book, it's really just one of those things that is dividing our nation. And I don't believe in dividing our nation. It hurts our great nation. And so CNN is really the enemy of the truth, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
No, thank you, caller, whoever you are, for speaking for the millions of us who understand what's going on. While nobody could pay me enough money to waste my time to actually read this book, I did enjoy this brief excerpt that Vanity Fair published. And this is real, by the way. While deep into research for this book in December 2019, I ran into Hannity at a holiday party hosted by the TV news tracking website Mediaite. We were upstairs at the Lamb Club, a stately Manhattan restaurant wrapped with big red leather banquets on 44th Street. Hannity greeted me by placing both of his hands on my shoulder and exclaiming, "Humpty!" His nickname for me was Humpty Dumpty. I asked if he ever felt bad about the name-calling. "No," he said. He took his hands off my shoulder and moved towards the bar. Maybe like Jim Acosta, Brian Stelter is just doing performance art in order to make fun of the liberal media. And since Brian is endless entertainment, some conservative sites like Red State noted that Brian Stelter uses his book to cry about being punked by Sean Hannity. This article points out what we all know and what everybody in the news industry knows, that Brian Stelter, the media analyst with the show hilariously named Reliable Sources, was, quote, arguably saved from anonymity by political satirist Mark Dice. Brian is the gift that keeps on giving, but I don't even get a thank you from him for making him famous.
It's getting more severe. Aaron, your review of this, when you see, entire media companies essentially exist to tear down Joe Biden, is there an equivalent to that on the left, tearing down Trump?
There really isn't.
No, there isn't. CNN and MSNBC aren't anti-Trump at all. Sometimes CNN can be even funnier than the Babylon Bee, and I understand why they're upset that they have some stiff competition in the parody news business. When this woman tweeted to Brian Stelter a link to a Babylon Bee article asking if he could confirm whether or not the story is true, this story, by the way, that Jussie Smollett had been offered a job at CNN after fabricating a news story out of thin air, Brian Stelter responded. The Babylon Bee is a fake news site, he said. The funniest thing is, he didn't actually mean for that to be funny. He's debunking stories from the Babylon Bee about CNN. After getting ratioed, he embarrassingly deleted his tweet, but thankfully several users took a screenshot, and we have the archive of the URL where it originally was. The Babylon Bee later came up with this gem: the internet is only big enough for one fake news site. But seriously, I still can't believe that his book actually made it to the top of Amazon's bestseller list. Albeit briefly, but in his credit, he actually did. This only means one thing. It's up to you to buy my book the day that I announce it, sometime between now and the election, in order to get mine to #1. Despite facing all the increasing censorship over the last few years, I'm still doing okay, and I'm confident that my book is going to do very well. So, really looking forward to that.
You understand that someday you're going to regret this, right?
What?
Someday you're going to regret this when your kids and your grandkids
I'm so
look
sorry
back at this time
write
and you use
best-selling
slurs
books
and
that I'm
smears like
debunking
fake news to hurt news
you know,
outlets.
oh no, oh yeah, I'm so
Mark,
I should have picked a different career.
I think
should've
in
went to
10 or
work for
20
mainstream media
years, if we
instead of
just sit
becoming a
down and talk
YouTuber,
about this, you're going to recognize how
sure.
damaging this was.
Yes.
How
Oh,
damaging
it's
it was
damaging.
to use terms
Oh,
like
no.
fake news to attack
Yeah,
journalists
fake
who are
news.
trying to do their
Damaging.
jobs.
Oh, try to do your job. You're hilarious, Brian.
Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about it.
I'm glad to be with you. I'm having fun. If I've ever made you laugh, if I've ever taught you one thing, I'm calling in the favor. You gotta buy my book the day that I announce it so that Brian Stelter doesn't beat me in the 2020 Media Analyst World Championship. I may have underestimated the competition, so it will be up to you to determine my fate. But until then, if you want to support my channel and get yourself an awesome Cops Lives Matter shirt, a Dare to Re-elect Trump shirt, or a Come On Man Trump 2020 shirt, head on over to my online store at markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.